Auto Metal Direct. They do a lot of reproduction parts that will help you restore your charger. And well, our first one is here. This is our torsion bar box. They call it a torsion bar cross member bracket. So let's go ahead and open that, see what it looks like. Well, considerably less rusty than the one we have in there. Man, those are some nice welds. Alright, well, that is really solid. That is super thick. Comes with tabs that rest on the rocker rails. These weld up to it as well. And then the floor welds onto this part here. There's the hump, and yeah. All right, part one down. Now to get this in there. I suck at welding. Hey there, welcome back to My Yard is My Garage. I'm Bishop. My yard, well, is my garage. We're working on our 1969 Dodge Charger project car. We are going to go ahead and dive under this today along with some help, and we're going to disassemble the suspension. We'll show you step by step on, well, maybe mine isn't the best way, but it certainly is one of the ways you can disassemble this without having to get any weird special parts, hopefully. Come along, let's see what this is going to entail, and it will be enjoyable for sure. Our 69 Charger project is up on jack stands now. We have a spare jack just sitting in the front here, just kind of keeping an eye on things. And we have a couple of jack stands underneath our frame, just behind the firewall where it intersects the branch that moves over and ties into the rocker, the rockers. All right, you can see where I have this supported, just under here on both sides. That'll give us really good access to our busted up torsion bar bracket, as well as the rest of the front suspension as we disassemble this. Underneath the car, we're looking at what's called a torsion suspension system. So instead of your typical springs up front, we have what is basically a bar here that connects to the lower control arm. And with that, the bar is adjusted through a bolt on the lower control arm to adjust the tension left and right like this. That's what gives you your spring. So in order to take this apart, we're going to first start with taking off this pin that's in the back that keeps the torsion bar from backing out. Alright, there's our holding pin. We'll set that aside so we can save that. Next, we're going to go ahead and take our tire off. That's going to be an issue because I don't believe that I have a key for that. That's going to suck. Okay, panic is averted. Here's our key. Yeah. Usually, people will buy these key sets to go ahead and keep other people from stealing their fancy rims. You essentially replace one of your studs with one of these, and unless you have the key, you're kind of stuck. So we're good. Panic is averted. Not easy though. All right. See, that's how it fits in there. Those are wide. Man, let's see. These numbers are, for if you're curious, P245 60 R14s. So yeah, they're 60s, so that's a good old nice wide tire. 14s, that's pretty small. Probably going to keep that in the front. I think though that we may need new rubber though, because something tells me that these are they're age checked. Not sure I see a date on these. Next we'll get this drum off. We'll have to take the dust cap off first. Let me bring you in here so you can kind of see what some of this looks like. There's our dust cap that we'll pull off. Upper ball joint. Looks like the 1 7/8 size. Upper control arm. Certainly is going to need bushings. The steel doesn't look bad. Looks like we stressed out our stabilizer bar a little bit there. Bump stop looks a little like it needs some more rubber for bumping. Alright, time to get some rubber gloves so I don't have to wash my hands so much. Okay, let's go ahead and disassemble this. We have some front drums. Oh, these things are pretty deep. Take off our cotter pin first. I just use my needle nose, put it through the top of the cotter pin, and then just hammer that thing out. Doesn't take a lot of effort. And I put that in the cup, the dust cup. Make sure I don't lose that. We have a castle nut retainer. This is just so the cotter pin helps to keep the nut from backing off. And this is our axle nut. Looks like we got plenty of grease on here. And yeah, these really aren't going to be tight. Typically what I do is when I put new bearings in, I snug them down, then I back them off about a quarter turn, then I put about 3-4 miles on the car, come back and snug it down again, but just lightly snug, not like a tough. You want this to be able to spin freely. Give it a little rock like this. We have a washer with a keyway. There should be a keyway right on top of the spindle axle there. There's our bearings. Wow. Yeah. Been underwater for a while, maybe. Well, we popped out. Oh, wow. Well, that's a surprise. Or is it? Nothing in here other than a few rusty old parts. Typically you would have some brake shoes in here along with springs and connector gear down here. None of that's here, and that's okay because we're going to go ahead and do a disc brake conversion on it anyways. So the fact that all this is gone just makes it a little easier on us. I'm going to bet you that we are going to need a lot of PB blaster on these, maybe even some heat to get those off. Oh, they look tough. Once we get all of this off, we can get our sway bar disconnected and off. Then we can get to step 2, which is pulling off the front strut, which is here. You can see that. Once we get that all done, then the excitement starts. I'll be using PB Blaster to help break down some of the rust to get some of these bolts out of there. So I would recommend on the strut ends, on any bolt you're going to be tugging on and taking off of here, give them a good soak a couple of days ahead of time. That way it'll give it a chance to break that rust up. It's got quite a smell to it. I'm gonna want to get back here. You can see that. That's the other side of the front strut. And up here is our torsion bar adjustment. And I'm just squeezing or squirting. We're gonna want to make sure we soak that liberally. It might be a couple of days before we get that off of there, but that's going to do us a lot of good effort. Upper control arm up here, we're going to want to get both ends of that as well. And up here on our upper ball joint, because that's a screw-in ball joint. And we're also going to want to get our castle nuts on either side of our ball joints, upper and lower. Get the sway bar bolt. Pretty much soak everything. If it's got a bump on it, or a bolt, or a nut, something, just soak it. Because it's all going to come apart. Sway bar, top and bottom. Well, we have everything soaking. We may have to wait till tomorrow to go ahead and pull some of this apart. Only because, well, that PB Blaster does not work instantly. It'll certainly help, but we may have to let it sit overnight. Okay, so right in there, right in the middle, right there. That's the bolt that adjusts this piece of metal, which has a hexagonal end on one of it that the torsion bar fits into. And so by adjusting this bolt up and down, you actually adjust the amount of tightness that is on that torsion bar that will raise and lower your car. Well, the head of that bolt just broke off, so I have no way to get that bolt out of there. So my only option really at this point in disassembling this is I'm going to have to pull the ball joints, pop the ball joints, and I'm going to have to let the suspension just explode in front of me. That's going to be really risky. I have no other way to get that bolt out of there now. That is just, it's not good. Everything under here is just so seized. I think it's been here since it was made, so that's not a surprise. But at least I do have that option. I can go ahead and undo the bottom joint as well as the upper ball joint, and then be really careful on expecting that lower arm and all the gear to just go kabam. Oh, won't that be exciting to watch? Next, we're going to be taking off the sway bar here. Well, that one took a little persuasion with, well, my Persuader 5000. Yeah, the forward strut rod nut came off just fine on this side. Of course, that's because, you know, it's near the power steering unit, which always leak on these, and so I kept a lot of these lubricated. But on this side, well, little persuasion, and that is off. So, the first thing we're doing is pulling off the strut rods. Next will be the shock. Well, as you can see, our passenger side one, well, that shock's already taken care of. Driver side, yeah, not so much. Let's go ahead and get that out of there. Hi. All right, now we can get this out of the way, and we can concentrate on our lower section here. So now we're going to undo the 15/16 bolt on the front side of the torsion bar. This is more of an axle pin, really. It's got a receiver on this side, and this is the tightening end. There's a bushing inside on over here. All right, so on my adventure getting this out of here, we're in the right fender well here. If we zoom in, here's our shock, lower control arm. You can see the bump stop. So if we look in here, that's where the torsion bar sits. So you can see the adjuster here with its nut, or with its bolt. Then on the underside over here is supposed to be the bolt head, which of course broke off. So we're having to struggle with the torsion bar under pressure. So what I've done is I've stuck my pickle fork in here between these two, treating it kind of like a ball joint, and I'm just banging it out, and at some point it'll release, and then we can smack it out the rest of the way on that bolt head right there. See, now we have some movement, and if we look back underneath here, we will see our torsion bar is now out of its locked position. Our lower control arm is now really loose. You can see in here that our torsion bar is now, or at least the anchor part over here, is out. So I've heard tell that just a few good smacks on the lower control arm and this stuff will just fall apart. I can already see it's pretty loose. We can certainly pull our strut rod out now. There we go, strut rod. Now we'll have to do some cleaning up on the end of that torsion bar. Well, actually that's the axle part. We're going to be replacing that. These lower control arms are crap anyways. I'll be replacing those. All right. Well, torsion bar 1. Well, Bishop 1, torsion bar 0. We have our upper control arm out of there. Man, it was some effort getting it out of here. So you can see at least we have all the suspension off on this side now. Now we can head to our driver's side and see what adventures await us next. All right, so let me talk about the upper control arm just for a second here. So this is how it would sit in the vehicle. You have an axle bolt which runs through here, and that goes through the bushing sleeve and through the shock tower and has a bolt on the other side. Well, there's an eccentric washer here and here, so when this bolt turns, that will slide the A-arm in and out. Same thing on this side. There's an eccentric washer on either side here, and when that's adjusted from the shock tower, it will slide that side in and out. That's how you get your camber adjustment and your toe in, toe out stuff. Well, my bolts, which come in from the inside and go to the outside, same thing on that. They are a metal bolt that goes through a metal sleeve and on the inside of that metal sleeve is rubber. That's your bushing. So what has happened is the bolt on the outside here, which you can see is now cut off on both, ground off here and snapped off. Those bolts ended up just rust welding to the inside of that bushing. So I had no alternative other than to brute force hacksaw them off and grind them off. So at least they're off now. Passenger side is done. Well, wow, that was a lot of work. Our passenger side is done. I am going to go ahead and put that in a video now so you can follow along on at least the passenger side. Next side is going to be the drinker's side. Drinker's side? No. Too much. Yeah. Next side is the driver's side. Captain's side. Okay. Drinker's side is the passenger. We'll take this all apart. Our torsion bar actually is already rusted through, or at least the torsion bar bracket box is rusted through. So we don't have to take that apart. And then tomorrow we'll get into this and get the rest of the suspension taken out, at least the front suspension. Thanks for coming along. If you like what you see, go ahead and click the subscribe. Hit the bell when you want to see when I got new content. Leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think is good, bad, where you want to see this project go. Thanks for dropping by. We'll see you next time on my Yard is My Garage.